Hello, Jimmy here, and you find me half-dressed because I have just been on a lovely trip out to an Anglo-Saxon hall. So I've got my cup of tea ready and I am warming my hands because even though this channel is called The Welsh Viking, today I have not been to a Viking site or a Welsh site, I have been to an Anglo-Saxon site. And this Anglo-Saxon site is a place that I've been to before, and a place that's been on the channel before. But I thought I would make a little video about it today because this year has been a bumper one for reenactment for me compared to the last couple of years. In 2022 and 2023, I think I managed one, maybe two public reenactments, and this year I have managed 4, and there's another one on the calendar. So it's a proper lovely bumper little year for me this year. I haven't managed to do as much reenacting as I wanted to in recent years, so when I got the invitation to go up to Jarrow, I snapped their arms off. Basically, Jarrow, if you've not heard of it, is an industrial town in the northeast of England, and it lies at the confluence of the River Don and the River Tyne. So it's a riverside town, basically. And you might have heard of the Jarrow Crusade, which was a really big event during the Great Depression. It was a great big march, basically a march for people's rights, and a march against mass unemployment and starvation that was affecting people at the time in the northeast of England and in other parts of the UK. And today, Jarrow is still a place where lots of people work in oil and gas. There's still a lot of import and export at the Tyne docks there, and nestled away on this little corner of land is the ruins of a medieval monastery. And Monk Wearmouth Jarrow Monastery was home to the Venerable Bede, who is one of the earliest Anglo-Saxon historians and scholars. And they have a museum in Jarrow, and it used to be called Bede's World, but now it's called Jarrow Hall Museum. It's the Bede Museum, B-E-D-E, remember. And they had commissioned a brand new sword. And Jimmy loves a sword, and I'm all about the offensive weapons, but I'm also big on defense, especially when it comes to defending you on the internet. Hello, you find me editing the video that you're watching right now. I know, time means nothing on the internet. And I'm editing your video on a laptop that has NordVPN. This is actually the screen for NordVPN. I have NordVPN on my laptop, and they like you to show that you have it in the ad read, so I've got it, chaps. It's real. It's here. It's on my laptop. I'm currently connected to Moldova so that I don't have to have adverts on my YouTube because they don't put ads on YouTube in Moldova, which is amazing. And if you want to have ad-free YouTube, you can go to www.nordvpn.com/Welsh. Use the code Welsh at checkout, and you will get 4 months at a huge discount on your 2-year subscription, and it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Nord is an amazing piece of tech. It's a VPN, it's a virtual private network. It allows you to pretend you're in a different part of the world. It has all sorts of other interesting internet security features. It has threat protection, it has file protection, it has vulnerability detection, it helps to prevent phishing scams and that sort of thing. And you can enjoy all of these things with a 30-day money-back guarantee with a huge discount on 4 months on top of your 2-year subscription by going to www.nordvpn.com/Welsh and using the code Welsh at checkout. Because, full disclosure, they have given me NordVPN, and I use it all the time. It's really good. So get around all that internet boundary censorship stuff that shouldn't exist, because it should be a global thing that we all get to use equally, right? I agree, Nord agrees. Go to www.nordvpn.com/Welsh, use the code Welsh at checkout, get your 4 months extra at a huge discount on top of your 2-year subscription, and leave me alone so I can finish editing this video. Go on. Absolutely seamless integration for today's sponsor. So, we went up to Jarrow this morning, bright and early. Well, not bright, it was kind of grey, and it was just starting to rain, and as is traditional, I go to reenactments in kit. I tend to go there in my reenactment clothes, and then I will come home and I'll get changed afterwards, which is what I've done. And I regretted not taking a cloak with me, because as you can see, the weather started semi-okay as we were driving up through North Yorkshire. And then it got slightly grey and gloomy, just as we got north of the North York Moors, and then as we approached Northumberland, it got very grey and gloomy. And then, as we entered the industrial heartland of the northeast of England, it got really nasty. However, by the time we got to Jarrow, things cleared up a bit, and it was a chilly, crisp, autumnal day. And strolling around the farm, where they normally have things like a blacksmith's forge working, it was like the first day of autumn. It had that crisp, cold feeling in the air that was very, very nice. Made me think of like the opening scenes from Beetlejuice, the original, first. There is only one Beetlejuice film, and it was lovely. It was a lovely, lovely morning. Nippy though. Bring a cloak. Always bring a cloak. Is my main lesson to you. And we went to this museum that really deserves more support. Jarrow Hall is probably a museum you haven't heard of. It's probably a museum you should go and check out if you're interested in the early medieval period, if you're interested in the Anglo-Saxons and or the Vikings and or the Britons of the early medieval period. Check out Jarrow Hall, because it's a really interesting place. It's a really cool place, and they have good books and they have a good story. It was all set up and started and based around archaeology and around material culture studies. They do a lot of experimental archaeology there. They're part of the Independent Museums Network, and they got a banging new sword. Because they had this new sword commissioned, the reenactment group that I'm a part of, that goes up there every couple of weeks anyway, decided to put on a bit of an extra display. So a few of us turned up, and instead of going to the farm and the Anglo-Saxon village that they have there, we put up a little arena by the museum itself, and we got lots of people coming past and watching the combat practice. And the best part of the whole day, I think, fairly obviously, was Spook, because Spook is one of the working farm cats at Jarrow Hall Museum's working farm. They have lots of rare breed animals and cool stuff, and Spook was very interested in the food, obviously. He stole the chicken from my sandwich whilst I was making it. He sniffed around all of the food. Eventually we have to put a cloak over everything, because we all went inside to the museum to see them reveal this new sword, and this is it. It's a beautiful piece of kit. It's an absolutely fantastic replica of a 7th or 8th century Anglo-Saxon sword. It's got inlaid garnets. It's got the clamped organic quillen. It's got a blade the right width, the right length. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's going into their cabinet with a mail shirt that is butted rather than riveted, which people commented on. But it was a beautiful sword, and it handled really nicely. Tony, one of the guys from the group, handled it. He's been on the channel before. Blink and you'll miss him. But Tony knows his swords. He's a veteran reenactment fighter. Tony's been on my channel before.
I have.
Yeah. And while all this was going on, obviously Spook was eating the food. But the museum there is well worth a visit. It's an independent museum, and we live at a time where independent museums, not just in the UK but all over the place, are under threat. A very important Welsh site called Llancaeach Fawr Manor has been mothballed by its local council, and it is an absolutely heartbreaking situation to see places like Llancaeach being mothballed. It was a part of my childhood. It's a part of hundreds of thousands of Welsh people's childhoods. It's an important part of our culture. And when we live at a time where people are saying things like, we might have to shut the National Library of Wales, you know that the arts, and especially smaller arts and cultural sites, really need as much help as they can get. So it was really nice to see lots of people attending the museum, lots of people attending the talks that they were holding about this sword, and lots of people just walking around enjoying all the artifacts and enjoying all the displays in a place that really does run on volunteer labour a lot of the time. They have paid staff there. Marco, who runs the place, is an absolutely fantastic guy, but they have a lot of volunteers there because they simply do not have the budget to pay people. I'm a volunteer at a cultural site. And I know that that place doesn't have the money to pay me because they don't have the money to buy me a pair of secateurs so I can prune the rosebush outside. The budget is zero in a lot of these places. So it was super, super important for us to do our best to get people in, to get people enjoying the place, to get people actually participating and hopefully buying things in the shop or in the cafe, or just making a donation to these sites. So although I reenact for pleasure and I reenact because it's my hobby, reenactment can be a real power for good, because if we turn up to these places and we advertise our events properly, it makes it more likely that these sites are going to get a crowd. If you, as the events team or as the management team of a cultural site or a museum, are wondering why you should get reenactors in for the weekend, well, it's because we're cheap most of the time. We don't need much. We need a toilet, some food and some water and a welcome, and we'll be pretty happy. Some firewood if we're staying overnight, and we bring the punters in. So reenactment can be a real force for good when it comes to arts and culture sites. Like, it always brings a crowd in if the reenactors turn up, especially if they start fighting and you start hearing the clashing of swords together. And although the crowd wasn't big at Jarrow Hall, it was bigger than it might have been if there hadn't been anything going on. And for us, it was just a nice afternoon out. I was sat chatting with my friends, I was having a catch-up with people that I hadn't seen for months and months and months, and I was playing with Spook, and I was eating wholesome food, and the people that walked up got to hold swords, and they got to talk to people, and they got to learn about the clothes and the spinning, and then go into the museum and enjoy the artefacts that were all there. They have the largest collection of 7th and 8th century stained glass, I should say coloured. They have the largest collection of 7th and 8th century coloured glass in Europe, in Jarrow Hall. In this tiny space that used to be a gasworks that has mushroomed in the last 25 years, they have Europe's largest collection of 7th and 8th century coloured glass. Why aren't you all going to see that? That's an incredible thing. That's an amazing thing to have there. A 5-minute drive east is Arbea Roman fortress. Over the River Tyne is Segedunum Roman fortress. 5 minutes north of that is Hadrian's Wall. There's a steam railway just over the river. It's an incredibly historically, culturally rich part of like parcel of land. It's unbelievable how much there is there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. The message of this video is effectively support your local museum in any way you can. If you're a reenactor, even if you're not an officer of your group, if you love a local museum and you think that they could use it, just go in and ask them if they want a reenactment event. They might say no, they might tell you to get stuffed, they might say yes, and that sounds fantastic. If you're a local museum and you're considering ways that you can bring people into your site, consider historical reenactment. If you're angry about Llancaeach Fawr, I've put a link in the description, you should go and support them. If you're thinking about joining a reenactment group, bear in mind that it's not just an interesting, fun hobby at the weekend, it can also be a way for you to get involved with cultural outreach programs. It can be a way for you to become an officer of a society. You could have budget responsibilities. If you become the treasurer, you could become the social media officer, you could be the merchandising officer, you could be the secretary, the social sac, the general sac. There are so many things that you can do in a reenactment society that give you some CV boosters as well, right? It's amazing what you can get from reenactment, other than dressing up in silly clothes, hitting your friends and drinking beer around a campfire, which is a major draw. You also get to do that, so there are no downsides. Yeah, I guess this video is all about reenactment being a power for good. Maybe I should call it something like that, but I want the clickbait title, so I'm probably going to call it "Come to an Anglo-Saxon Village with Me." Anyway, diolch yn fawr iawn am wylio. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to enjoy this cup of tea and try and get my head together because it's been a long, tiring, rainy old day. Thank you to my lovely patrons for all your support. If you want to support the channel financially, do pop over to the Patreon or to the Coffee page. Otherwise, please like, please subscribe. I'd love to get the channel to 100,000 subscribers because that would be a hell of a thing. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. Till the next time. Tan y tro nesa. Hwyl am y tro. Bye bye.